Totally Football Show. Today, winner, chicken dinner. Grimsby Town have Man United on toast in the Carabao Cup. Meanwhile, when you're out in round 2 to a team from League Two, that's Amorim. We ask what's next for United's under-fire boss. Elsewhere, Lord Almaty, there's new faces in the Champions League, but no Scottish sides after Celtic and Rangers misadventures this week. And we preview Premier League Matchday 3, Liverpool Arsenal, and with an international break looming, who could soon be packing their bags? It's the Totally Football Show. Thursday, the 28th of August, just after a midweek that was not kind to managers who are wedded to their philosophies. In the Champions League playoffs, disaster for Rangers. Duncan Alexander's here with us.
Hello.
In the Carabao Cup for Ruben Amorim and Manchester United. Tom Williams also here with us.
Hello, James.
And Colin Millar as well. What to say about Wednesday night at Grimsby Town?
Good, wasn't it?
Extraordinary.
At first, I thought maybe ITV and Sky broadcasting the fixture was too much, but if anything, we needed a third broadcaster. So,
well, let's see what we can add to the picture now. If you missed it, Manchester United Football Club, I think we'll add that in this instance, who were only in this round of the Carabao Cup because they finished 15th last season and failed to qualify for Europe, went to 4th tier Grimsby Town, and League Two Grimsby Town, who play in League Two, promptly knocked them out after a penalty shootout. It was a proper United lineup as well, Tom.
Well, in the sense that it was, of course, the uncontestable 3-4-2-1 formation. Lots of changes to the starting 11, but nevertheless a group of players who should have been able to play with, I was going to say a degree more coherence, multiple degrees of more coherence than they managed. And just a brilliant cup tie, a biblical rain at the start of the second half, and yeah, an absolutely fantastic underdog performance, and yet more problems for poor old beleaguered Ruben Amorim.
Yeah, we mentioned on Sunday Amorim's floor stare of despair during the Fulham draw. Wednesday night, spent the shootout at the end of the game, stood not with his staff, but alone, sat on the bench, head in hands, shaking quietly. Colin, worrying times.
Yeah, and as Tom said, the sort of thunderstorm backdrop to this match kind of gave it that cup tie vibe, didn't it, with the epic penalty shootout at the end. And there's so many moments in that shootout as well, that there's so many sort of talking points within it that made it really interesting.
Well, we'll get on to those, because to tell us more about the magnificent Mariners Grimsby Town, we're joined now by Grimsby fan and former Soccer AM host Lloyd Griffith. Lloyd, hello.
Oh, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Are you outside a train station?
I am outside the train station at Cleethorpes, which is where Grimsby actually play. I'm jumping on a train about 15 minutes to go back to London. If I'm being brutally honest, I didn't think that I would need to do the media rounds this morning. I thought it'd be a closed shop. You know what I mean? We've got thumped 4-0 at half time. I can have a lie, maybe a couple of pints. I've been up since 7 o'clock doing Radio 4, 5 Live. You know, it's a lovely story, as you just alluded to. Like, it's a proper underdog victory, and the whole town is buzzing this morning. People wearing their shirts, car horns going off. It's a lovely atmosphere. Everywhere
you look, it's winner, chicken dinner, as the famous motto of Grimsby Town runs.
It is one of the famous mottos of Grimsby Town. I mean, it's one of our mottos. It's been around since 1878, actually, that motto.
Fish not enough for you, is it?
Look, it's all about protein.
And you got your just desserts against Man United. Lloyd, extraordinary action. So you were on holiday in Malta and cut your holiday short to get back for the game. Almost didn't make it.
Yeah.
But you were there.
It was a situation where, I mean, I didn't necessarily have the second round of the Carabao Cup in my diary. So when me and my partner decided to go to Malta, it wasn't something that I needed to really factor in. And then when you get drawn at home to Manchester United, it isn't something you have to factor into a relationship. It's like, how do I broach? Can I come back to Grimsby for this? And so, bless her, she let me. When I say let me, I mean, you know, she's a lovely lady. But as in, she was like, yeah, fine, let's cut our holiday short. So I came back via Manchester. She went back to Gatwick, and yeah, a friend of mine picked me up. And you know, we haven't played each other since 1948. It's, you know, we spent a lot of time in the top flight of English football, but we just never played Manchester United since 1948. So it was a game that I just wasn't going to miss.
Can you believe what you witnessed, Lloyd? The going 2-0 up, the thinking he had a third, and that shootout that was Epic. What was it? 20 minutes long?
Yeah, 20 minutes long. It did really have everything. Do you know what I mean, you say you had the biblical storm in the second half. Like a lot of the lads and I sit with my mum in the upper Finders, the upper Ramsden's home furnishings stand, as it's called this year. And the lad in front of us, he works at the dock, and he got an alert from one of his mates on a boat, be like, there's a flash storm coming. I was like, what? And then we were following this storm, and then it was great. I mean, we were 2-0 up at half-time, and we said at half-time, look, no matter what happens, obviously you're going to have to make changes because they're losing to Grimsby Town. Whatever happens, we've had this 45 minutes. And we ran them off the park. Like, there's no denying it. I'm not sure if you saw the whole game, but we absolutely dominated Premier League Manchester United for a full 60 minutes, and it was lovely. Obviously, they brought on Bruno Fernandes, and, it swung back into their kind of like favour. And then to go to penalties, the scoreboard says 12-11. So, it does look like we won 12-11 after 95 minutes, if you look at the scoreboard. But yeah, it's I'd never seen in life penalties go on for that long.
Christy Pym, the hero, the Grimsby Town goalkeeper, who told Natalie Jedder afterwards that he's actually a Man United fan and saved that, that's Cunha's second penalty because it went round, of course, the shootout. What a moment, Lloyd, the extraordinary pitch invasion. What a joyous encapsulation of just pure sporting joy that was.
Yeah, and it was a moment where it did just keep going on, and we weren't sure how it was going to end. And I think, when we got to the second round of penalties, it's like, look, if we go out here, we've held our heads up high. And also, I have to say, probably quite difficult for Man United to do their research on Grimsby Town penalty takers when Henry Brown, bless him, I think has played 5 senior games for Manchester United and hasn't taken a penalty in his, professional career. How is Onana doing homework for that? So, look, if Manchester United want Christy Pym, I don't work for the club, but I'm sure I can broker that deal. 35 million quid is yours. But it was amazing. Then the pitch invasion. I mean, it was everything you want in a cup tie. And I still, the dust hasn't really settled. I'm talking about it and doing various interviews. But I think when I get on the train, just kind of have a little moment, I'll think, oh wow, that actually happened. And I'm just going to devour every interview, every highlight package there is going on that train. It's one for the ages.
Magnificent. Lloyd, you've got a train coming up and about 7 interviews to do before that. So we'll let you go. And maybe, holidays permitting, we'll speak to you after the 3rd round against Sheffield Wednesday.
I am not putting any holidays into my diary for that week. If I am, I will be going to Sheffield on my holiday. So we're actually, weirdly, my other half is from, so it might actually work out in my favour this time around.
All right.
So, but yeah, thanks for having me, and up the Mariners.
Magnificent. Thank you so much, Lloyd. Have a great trip.
Cheers, Lloyd.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Lloyd Griffith, who was certainly in a good mood this Thursday morning.
Cock a hoop.
Indeed so. That pitch invasion really was, I think, a beauty, especially because it was on a greasy pitch. So you had people tumbling left, right and centre. And such was the mood of...
A good-natured pitch invasion,
It was. So good-natured that... Did you see the TV director?
To see for once, rather than scenes the commentator instantly condemns.
Right.
Good joy, not bad joy.
There was one young waif who approached a TV camera only to be shouldered out of the way by a young fellow who wanted to try a knee slide on national television. It failed, but then the director... So was the mood of bonhomie that the director just stayed on and said, have another go. And he got his moment.
Knee slide followed by a Steven Gerrard-style camera snog. So ticking off multiple professional footballer celebrations. Well done, that man.
And Lloyd was saying about the shootout and that they're feeling that whatever happens, we've done ourselves proud. It was really noticeable how the faces of tension, even when Man United were ahead in the shootout, that you looked on the Grimsby Town bench and the manager was smiling and chuckling. The players were grinning ruefully at times, but grinning anyway. Whereas you looked on Man United's bench and it was just a pit of despair.
The body language throughout the shootout and throughout much of the match was completely different. And I think obviously, if you're a fan in that stadium, you're a Grimsby Town fan. I mean, that was a night that you're never going to forget. That you're always going to have that, no matter what happens the rest of the season, from the years that are going to come by. You're always going to have those moments, and you're never going to forget it. And that's obviously what makes football so special for a lot of people when you're following a team week in, week out, and you get those moments. Obviously, the flip side of it is probably the much bigger story in a way.
Well,
and obviously, James, you mentioned the Ruben Amorim body language during the shootout, but his interview after the match was was, I thought, extraordinary.
What did he say?
He said that, he said to multiple media outlets, I thought the players spoke really loudly today. And then he said, something has to change and you're not going to change 22 players again.
Laurie Whitwell was also in Cleethorpes for the match and he joins us now. Hey, Laurie.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Very, very well. Laurie, the opening 2 games of the Premier League season haven't been kind to Manchester United, but this, how would you describe this?
Yeah, and a day, unprecedented. It was kind of wild to be in this stadium and witnessing this event, with the rain pouring down. There's so many different aspects to it to kind of unpick. But I think you're right there in terms of Ruben Amorim's statements after the game being the most important, kind of most relevant to what happens next, because it certainly seemed to me that he was hinting at least talks about his future, if not even one step further, and potentially him offering his position, because he's touched on that before. End of last season, we reported on the Athletic at the time. And then he spoke to us in Chicago about that situation, saying that, it was more about him than the club in terms of whether it would continue or not. Now, maybe that's him speaking with the emotion of having witnessed that game. And certainly he is a manager who feels a lot during the game and then afterwards. And maybe, in the coming days, he'll calm down and sort of be more reflective, if that is indeed what he was hinting at. But he was given opportunity to clarify and kind of kept it fairly cryptic. So, but it kind of feels like a pretty significant event for Manchester United, a historic event, and where that leaves Ruben Amorim in this team and this club and this regime, I don't really know.
But you certainly wouldn't rule out a change coming potentially in the international break that's coming up after this weekend.
Yeah, I think everything's open at the moment, because of the way that Amorim was speaking. I think he could have diffused the situation, said, listen, it's a really bad night. Maybe he felt that he had to be so strong because it was such a bad occasion, but I feel that him speaking on those terms does bring it into the realms of possibility. Let's say, previously when he's done this, the club have persuaded him not to and kind of backed him, with signings and kind of support. But I feel like, maybe it's different this time. Maybe it's not. The initial soundings that I'm getting would be surprised, perhaps, if he does depart. But I think we're in the realms of at least talking about it right now.
Right. Sometimes managers can say that kind of thing as almost a challenge, either to the club or to the players. But everything about his body language, just not just on Wednesday night, but throughout the start of the season, suggests that he's deeply unhappy to be in charge of that team. Ruben Amorim certainly gets fingers pointed at him over his tactical inflexibility, but he wasn't the only one who shoulders the blame for Wednesday's defeat. I was going to say Andre Onana might not be feeling too happy with his return to the first team.
No, yeah, obviously that was the big talking point from the start of the season. Who would be in goal? Altay Bayındır was selected by Ruben Amorim. Andre Onana wasn't even in the squad for the Arsenal game, back on the bench at Fulham, and now starting his first game, getting his first minutes of the season. And yeah, it was a disaster, wasn't it? I mean, the first goal, letting it slip through his hands, and then it looked like he was trying to atone for the second goal, sort of getting in the mix on the players. And yeah, it's a difficult situation maybe for a goalkeeper to totally be powerful on. But yeah, to look that bad against League Two opposition, I think is a damning indictment really of where United are at with the goalkeepers. And I mean, at least he scored his penalty, shall we say that? Because then the penalty shootouts, he had that one save that was a really good save, but then for me, he just kept diving really strongly to his left, repeatedly. And even then, the ones that he got his hand to, he wasn't strong enough on. I mean, I guess penalties are a bit of a hostage to fortune, but it didn't fill you with confidence. So yeah, I mean, that's another area that they're going to have to look at. And they are obviously, in talks with Antwerp for Sene Lammens, the 23-year-old goalkeeper. But it's a big situation to come in if they do pull that deal off, to then a young lad that has had one full season at Antwerp to kind of come into this, like I say, unprecedented atmosphere.
Talking of the shootout, Laurie, what do we make of Sesko being the final outfield player to take one? That seems a bit odd for a big new number 9 signing, right?
Have you not got a stat for us there on the last time a £70-odd million signing was the 10th penalty taker, the last outfield penalty taker in a shootout on his first appearance? Got to be a unique occasion, that as well, right?
I reckon, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to steal another stat from my colleague Mark Critchley, who said that apparently he's converted 11 of his 11 penalties that he's taken in regulation football. So for him to be, it's not like he doesn't take penalties. I guess, were they trying to protect him a little bit in case he did miss and then became the story? But I think really you should be having a striker take a penalty earlier than that. I mean, to be fair, United have Harry Maguire, who as a central defender is actually really good at penalties. Diogo Dalot as well is converted in penalty shootouts before. But I'd probably put Sesko ahead of Matthijs de Ligt, right? I mean, I know de Ligt scored, but you're sort of thinking, surely the guy that you spent all this money on should be higher up the order. But yeah, it was another curious anomaly of a night of many anomalies.
It was another of the players who United have spent a lot of money on this summer, Mbemo, who missed then his second penalty to seal Grimsby's passage to the next round. It's Burnley at Old Trafford this weekend. Laurie, they couldn't, could they?
Well, I thought that coming to Grimsby, on my drive over here, long old drive, I was over in Anglesey on a family holiday, and I thought I need to get to Grimsby just in case something happens. And I'm currently here in Cleethorpes, hearing the seagulls chirp, right next to Blundell Park, actually. And so, yeah, I thought that couldn't happen. It did. So I'm not writing anything off with this Manchester United team now. In a weird way, I kind of feel like they would prefer a big team to go up against in the next game because they could get themselves up for it. I kind of worry that Burnley at home at Old Trafford sort of might be another one of these, I don't know, lethargic performances. That was what Amorim was really agitated about last night. The fact that they didn't, start the game with intensity. He was really on it from the kickoff, kind of trying to instruct them where to be, which again, you can maybe get into in terms of, is that the best thing for this group of players, having a head coach that is so particular about positioning at this particular stage. But Burnley obviously coming off the back of a good win in their second game, in the Premier League season. So they look like they've got a little bit about them at least. I'd have to win this game, really. I mean, maybe it still becomes a footnote in the wider picture, but I certainly think that it would be an absolute cataclysmic start to the season if they were to lose this one.
Burnley beat Derby 2-1 at Turf Moor on Tuesday in the Carabao Cup. You got to head off, Laurie. Are you heading back to Anglesey now?
I am indeed, yes.
Yay!
4-hour drive awaits me.
Point out, Anglesey to Cleethorpes back to Anglesey is one of the greatest sort of journeys anyone's ever made in this country. I reckon.
Really? In terms of what? Seafront
pure
road?
west to east, back to
west to east. Yeah. It's ridiculous. When the draw was made, and I've realised I was always going to be away on this holiday, I just thought, I've never been to Grimsby before. I'm never probably going to watch a match at Blundell Park. With United certainly being there, it had all this ingredients for this occasion. And as it transpired, obviously, not for positive reasons for United, but it was a spectacle to be there. So I'm glad I made the journey. I've got some energy just about for the trip back, although sort of 4 hours sleep for fuel. I might need a couple of Red Bulls on the way.
Laurie, we're so glad that you went along, and many, many thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Cheers.
Kieran Maguire putting up an interesting chart. Did you see this on social media on Thursday morning? Grimsby versus Man United financial comparisons. You can pick out loads of things in the percentage difference column that he's put, but I personally like total squad cost, which Man United's is 1.27 billion and a bit. Grimsby's is a bit, and the percentage difference is 451%.
Big old percentage.
It certainly is.
I don't want to go, full Little Englander, but I do sometimes think that overseas managers underestimate the strength of the pyramid in England, and because Amorim kept saying after the game this is a fourth division team, which in Portugal,
which one was he referring to?
Very fair, very fair. League Two is a strong league, and I think compared to a country like Portugal or Holland or something like that, these teams I think they surprise managers sometimes. But I think all through the game, his body language, as Colin said, was just weird. Like, he didn't watch the penalty shootout. He had his tactics board during extra time, which he was. Not extra. He had his tactics board later on in the game, which he was shuffling around. But I mean, I don't understand what was that? What was he doing?
It felt potentially like the precise moment at which he became a meme, and that is never a good moment for any manager. And I think the tactics board is key because it strikes at the heart of the problem. And the big problem for Amorim is that he's looking through the wrong end of the telescope. The questions he should be asking are, how do I make this team better? How do I fit these players into the positions where they will be able to play their best football? But the only question he seems to be asking is, how do I fit these players into my preferred 3-4-2-1 formation? You take the case of Kobbie Mainoo, for example, probably the most talented footballer to have come through the United Academy since Marcus Rashford, now looks like he's going to have to leave against his own will, pretty much, if he wants to get first-team football somewhere. The problem that Amorim has created for himself is that he's decided that Fernandes and Mainoo cannot play alongside each other in the midfield too, but because he's signed Mbemo and Cunha in the window, Fernandes has to drop deeper. a slightly more experienced manager or a less dogmatic manager would think, well, Fernandes kind of needs two pairs of legs alongside him. I'll pick Mainu and someone else, Ugarte or Casemiro or whoever. But because it has to be 3-4-2-1, Mainu's basically going to be forced out of the club, a club that he loves, a club where he is adored by the fans, having shown he's good enough purely because of this tactical straitjacket that the manager has decided to fit himself in.
Unless, as we were hinting, there is a change on that front over the next day or two, week or two, Colin.
Yeah, well, this is a point that I think does need to be made, is that you're now talking about Amorim's future and how long is that going to last, but Manchester United have at the time of recording, 4 or 5 days left of the transfer window, and they're desperate to sell players that specifically is down to the system that Amorim has, that the players that he does and doesn't want. And not just that, but as Tom said, I mean, those players include Alejandro Garnacho, Kobe Manu, players who came through the academy. And when we talk about Manchester United and the attachment they have to the youth system and to the players that come through and to the players that do mean something to the club, and I know that there's extenuating circumstances on a case-by-case basis, but fundamentally they've been trying to sell both of those players since January because they don't fit Amorim's system. So if Amorim's going to leave and there's going to be a new system, would all of a sudden they want those players again? I mean, this has come at probably the worst possible moment for Manchester United as a club in deciding what is going to happen, not just in the next week, but in the next seasons coming ahead.
Worst possible moment so far, I think. Well, Matchday 3 of the Premier League kicks off Saturday lunchtime. Chelsea against Fulham. That'll be fun. 3 o'clock games are Wolves against Everton, Spurs Bournemouth, Manchester United Burnley, and Sunderland Brentford, who are having their first top-flight meeting since May 1947. 5:30 on Saturday, Leeds take on Newcastle. Brighton Man City is one of the 2 o'clock games on Sunday, the other being Nottingham Forest against West Ham, where there's also a significant degree of pressure on the manager Graham Potter. At 4:30 on Sunday, last season's top 2, Liverpool and Arsenal, face off at Anfield, and that's followed by a 7 o'clock game. It's Aston Villa against Crystal Palace. Why, Duncan?
Why indeed?
The suits say it's because of Palace's sudden involvement in the Conference League. They have to stick it on a Sunday night.
Well, we saw this invented as a concept last season with teams playing on Thursday night and finding out that they can suddenly move games to Sunday at 7 o'clock. It's not fun for anyone, is it?
Very COVID era match slot, isn't it? But that was the match slot that Aston Villa, whenever they beat Liverpool 7-2, was a late Sunday match. So let's not write off the Villa Park 7 o'clock.
I mean, Villa Park does. I mean, you mentioned Project Restart. I mean, obviously the Hawkeye occlusion was at Villa Park, so it's got some heritage.
Hawkeye occlusion.
Yeah. Good
That's what the Wikipedia page is called, I believe.
Remind us about the Hawkeye occlusion.
Well, there were too many people on the goal line, so although Sheffield United should have scored,
right,
Hawkeye would just kind of shrugged and went,
exploded.
Sorry, lads.
If Big Sam was still Premier League managing, he would have tacticked that up and installed a certain number of defenders on the goal line for any chance. Well, headlining that set of fixtures, without doubt, is Liverpool against Arsenal, last season's top 2. Both clashes last season ended 2-2. This is actually the Premier League fixture that's provided the most goals in the last decade. 78 in 20 matches, which is sort of 3.5 a game. Liverpool on Monday certainly doing their best to suggest that kind of goal-scoring activity will continue because they once again conceded a couple of goals for the 4th game in a row, in fact, in their trip to Newcastle. Once again, they got away with it, but against a 10-man Newcastle, a Newcastle with no strikers, the positives were few and far between.
I do think these are the 2 strongest teams in the league. I think that ultimately it's going to go head-to-head for the title. But I do think what's so interesting about this clash isn't just that, it's this sort of stylistic differences, and we've just seen that already in the couple of opening games, that Liverpool are just so open defensively. And we've always obviously spoke about the amount of money they've invested, and Arsenal have as well, of course, in the window, but Liverpool have invested it in attack-minded players, front-footed players, and that includes both fullbacks, obviously Milos Kerkez and Jeremy Frimpong. And I think Kerkez has really struggled to adapt because obviously he did so well at Bournemouth, but that's in a slightly different system and in a slightly different dynamic. Whereas when you're at Liverpool, and obviously they've had Andy Robertson in that position for years, sort of bombing down. But you also have to have that sort of defensive discipline and positional awareness as well. And I think that just takes a bit of time, especially for defenders to bed in with new teammates and do a new system and with new expectations as well of exactly what's required of you. And I think that has sort of maybe exposed a little bit of Ibrahim Konate's sort of vulnerabilities as well. I think he's struggled in the opening couple of matches. Virgil van Dijk, who obviously signed a new contract last season, I don't think he's been out of form particularly, but I think when you've got to then cover a lot of space when you're into the stage of the career that he is in, that also becomes a slight issue. And I just think Liverpool have been too open. I mean, they're conceding 2 goals per game, and if you're going to win the title, you cannot do that. That has to stop. And then Arsenal, of course, are the sort of other end of the scale, aren't they? And that how much control they have and how much they try to make sure that they're not open at the back and that they always have that cover there, and that they're always, I wouldn't say safety first, but they're certainly set up in a way not to lose these games. And if you look at their record against the big six, as it were, and I know it's a bit of an arbitrary measurement, but they're undefeated in the last 22 matches back to April 2023.
Right.
They've won 13 of those, so they're very, very strong in these matches.
That the other members of the big six have all won trophies in that period, but in some ways, not losing is the biggest trophy of all.
Isn't it, though? It's 13 years, actually, since Arsenal, for all their record against the big clubs, have actually won at Anfield. That was when Brendan Rodgers was in charge on Merseyside. This time they go in with some very exciting new arrivals. No Bukayo Saka, not sure what the other injury news is, but could be seeing a Gunners debut for Eberechi Eze.
I think the loss of Saka is important for this fixture because, as Colin points out, Kirkes has looked very unsure. I think if Saka had been fit, then I would have thought Robertson would come in for this match. But I mean, on the other side, I thought Szoboszlai was brilliant at right back at Newcastle on Monday night. So that is a positive given the other injuries Liverpool have. But yeah, I mean, the one thing Arsenal have struggled with is breaking down deep blocks. They're not really going to face one in this game. Yeah. So they kind of don't need Eze as much for this game. Eze is like your lock pick for when they're facing a deep Brentford block at the Emirates, really. But given the injuries, I think he might play a role, definitely. I mean, obviously the other is young Rio against young Max, if either of them make it.
Right. So Rio is the lad who scored the 100th minute winner away at St James's Park.
Youngest scorer in Liverpool's history.
Only the 4th youngest scorer in Premier League history, behind Rooney, Milner, and the youngest, James Vaughan, for Everton.
Widest gap in age between a passer and goal scorer in Premier League history. Because it was Mo Salah, ripe old age of 33, teeing up 16-year-old Rio Ungamoha. But which pairing did those two supplant in the record books? Duncan can't answer because he probably wrote the tweet that I read and got this information from.
Was James Milner involved?
It was not, but it was the same club.
But which James Milner club?
Sorry, the same club, Liverpool.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Do you want it now or should we leave it for the end of the show?
Leave it for the end of the show.
Sure. Well, ironic that Mo Salah got the assist.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because the definitive act in the build-up to that goal was Dominic Szoboszlai's absolutely magnificent dummy. Does he get an assist for it?
No.
Does he get anything at all? Nothing. Just gets empty praise. How's he going to put that on his stats spreadsheet?
We simply don't know if he was about to shoot and then a bee went near him and he jumped like that and it went through. We'll
never know.
Can't cover that.
Oh, is that it? Excellent. All right. Well, I look forward to the answer to that stat question later on. Arsenal, so dangerous from corners. The numbers say 3 of their 6 goals this season have been from corners taken by Declan Rice. In fact, he's taken 3 corners this season and they've scored from all of them.
Incredible.
Kind of doing with corners what he did with free kicks last season.
Nice.
He takes them, they go in.
What a valuable asset to have. What do you think? Liverpool Arsenal, is this huge? Is it massive for the title race?
It's one of those very exciting early season fixtures.
Is this a day when you can't win the Premier League title, but you can lose it?
No, it's not. It's neither of those things. It's neither of those things.
If you ask me, I think the fixture computer's gone too hard too early this season.
Really?
The first few weeks has been an absolute cavalcade of big games.
Right.
We are going to reach some point in October when it's going to be quite bleak.
Burnley, Brentford, again.
I mean, I enjoy all the fixtures, so it doesn't affect me, but there are some out there who will be,
Key part of this as well. If you rewind 1 year, and Arsenal had all these really difficult away fixtures early on, and they had a really strong record in them, and they were winning 1-0 and 2-1, and everything. This is the market champions, and this shows that they've got what it takes this year. And ultimately, it was the other games they sort of stumbled in. So, would it really be a surprise if they put in a sort of strong or controlled performance here and got at least a draw? and then in a couple of weeks' time, maybe slipped up in a game that you might maybe expect them to win in. So, yeah, I don't think this game's going to be definitive in any way, but I think it's just going to be really interesting to see the clash of styles and who's going to be able to adapt it that little bit better.
Should be a lot of fun to watch. That's 4:30 on Sunday afternoon. The other games featuring the teams at the top of the table. Well, Chelsea are taking on Fulham Saturday lunchtime, as we mentioned. Spurs are up against Bournemouth, and Manchester City head to Brighton. Manchester City beaten, of course, by Spurs last weekend. Brighton were involved in the Carabao Cup second round. They went to the Kazam Stadium and beat Oxford.
Struggling Oxford, yeah.
Struggling Oxford 6-0.
They gave up quite a lot of chances, though. I'm not sure what the XG was, but Jason Steele, who was back between the posts, had quite a busy... I'm sure they don't care, but just in case any Oxford United fans are screaming at their smart speakers, I thought I'd mention that. Duncan's not having it.
Okay.
I can tell by his face.
3 stands, 6 goals, do the ratio.
Bruce Charlie observes that in view of Brighton's clash with Man City, Pep Guardiola is actually old enough to be Hurtzela's dad. There's 22 years of age difference. Tom, you'll enjoy that. Weird to think of Pep. I still think of him as being
like an elder
one
statesman.
Of the younger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me, eh?
One of the joys of premature balding, James, is that you age much less slowly.
Is that
Well, no.
That's an embarrassed pause.
No, you age very quickly.
You do your aging early.
You get your aging out of the way.
Get
it out of the way. Lose your hair. Oh no, my hair's gone and bald. But then, actually,
welcome to my head hair. There's a reducer.
Actually, all right.
Literally a reducer.
But Pep Guardiola doesn't. Okay, his beard's getting greyer.
Yeah, but in a stylish fashion.
He's gone for a thinner beard this season.
He dresses young.
Dresses young.
Anyway, the actual youngster, Fabian Hurtzler,
younger than the Big Breakfast.
He's yet to lose a game in two clashes with Manchester City.
And in this game last year, City had the lead 3 times and then across the 2 games, and obviously they didn't win either of the matches. And I do think that for Manchester City, there was a massive overreaction generally to that opening day game against Wolves. I mean, obviously they won 4-0, and it's like, you saw all the things that are good about them, but that's exactly what we saw in the sort of last 10, 12 games of last season against teams who you sort of think they should beat, and when they go out and then they just look so good when they're afforded that time on the ball, and they're not really threatened defensively. But then the flip side of that was Tottenham last week. And also when you kind of look back over the past sort of couple of games across a couple of tournaments, stretching back in the early this year, of course, but the FA Cup final against Palace and how they were how they struggled to assert their authority in that. Obviously, the Club World Cup as well. They had that exit, and they've had so much change. Whereas if you look at Brighton, who we are all sort of accustomed to having this massive turnover of players, they've only really got one new signing in their starting 11 from last season. That's Maxime de Cooper and the left back. Whereas City have made all these different changes, obviously trying to evolve a little bit and trying to refresh the squad. But I think for this particular fixture, you kind of think Brighton have all the qualities to kind of exploit those weaknesses in City's team, like the kind of weakness in transition and the front-footedness.
We'll see. I mean, this could be one of the most exciting fixtures of the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, City's problems still boil down to the fact they don't have Rodri in their starting 11, and he's on the bench, and maybe this is the game where Pep ushers him into the 11. I mean, for Brighton, I guess their fans will be clamouring for Stefanos Tsimas to come into the team. Obviously scored twice at Oxford, not a high watermark, but it's he's only 19, obviously brought in this he's on loan, wasn't he, last year in the Bundesliga, but he looked really good.
And Brighton's problem so far has been not scoring goals. The 1-0 up against Fulham on the opening day, should have won, conceded a stoppage time equaliser. I saw them at Everton last weekend, and before Iliman Ndiaye scores the first goal at the new stadium, Danny Welbeck has missed an absolute sitter.
Penalty as well.
Also the penalty later on in the game. Kaoru Mitoma almost got an absolute worldie.
Yeah, that's very much his
flicked the ball over defender's head, volley off the crossbar. And this has been the kind of recurring feature. Yeah. And, City do give up chances. So if they can kind of, stick the ball in the net, we'll have some goals.
I don't want to press the sample size klaxon, but every year...
Allow a Nations League once again, the enigmatically titled poster who writes in to say, to do that for you, to finish my sentence, they write in to say, is there a need for people to wind their collective neck in the start that Thomas Frank has made at Spurs? Post the City win, we've all been eulogising Frank, and I think just generally for the excellent start when they went 2-0 against PSG.
I don't feel like the collective neck has been
wound out.
Wound out. in general.
I sort of agree with the.
Well, let
With
A
the
Nations League once again pick up the story. Given that Spurs won 8 of their first 10 Premier League games under Ange, and he picked up an unprecedented 3 Premier League Manager of the Month awards in a row, I would say spoil sport to you, A Nations League.
I think that's
once
more of an
again.
indictment of the Manager of the Month awarding system, to be honest. I mean,
Right.
I think that with that start with Ange, it was so unusual, and I think the Premier League took 2 months to basically realise that, like, they can't surely be playing this open, and then eventually they did, and then Spurs declined. So, but we should point out that 2 games. You wouldn't look at the Boxing Day fixtures and the one in between New Year and go, I'm going to base my whole judgment of a team on these 2 games.
No, but when
But
the
it's- but
start
it's
of the
very-
season,
I know, but
the
it's-
map is undrawn, and you fill in the blanks with your wildest imagination. Here be Dragons, there be a successful
But there's
Tottenham
teams that
season.
win 2 and go down. There's teams that lose the first 2 and win the league. It's too early. You know, we can see maybe Manchester United aren't going to win the league. We can maybe say that.
Maybe
He's gone big.
But with Spurs, I just want to throw in the fact that there was the PSG game, and I know that they didn't ultimately get the Super Cup, but it was
Although Nuno Espirito Santo won all 3 of his first matches and won the Manager of the Month award and didn't get the chance to win
People
many
just
more
love
managers.
Spurs starting the season well.
Which it speaks to just the impatience of the football fan.
Yeah.
We want to know. We want to draw our conclusions as hastily as possible and just get rid of this terrible
think that's
uncertainty. No, but that's why.
And then people get to February and they're like, ugh.
No. We're talking about it because you sit there, you watch the game for 90 minutes, and you can't help but think, well, this means something, and that team's going to be playing that team, and look what they did, and you know that's the whole.
Oh no,
thing.
it's part of the joy of it. But I think the only thing you can say about Spurs is they've had a good start to the season. Thomas Frank has had a positive impact, but you know they had ideal opposition on the opening day, a promoted team, Burnley, who looked a little bit caught in the headlights.
Right.
And then they won away at City, which is what they always do. Yeah, and they played well in the UEFA Super Cup. And Frank is obviously getting his ideas across. And you know, Kudus has started well. Richarlison's filling in very well for Dominic Solanke, and Brennan Johnson's in the goals, etc., etc.
2 and
But
2.
it's too early to say.
Well, this might be where it all comes unstuck as they welcome Bournemouth to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Curiously, Frank's old side played Bournemouth midweek. Brentford, they were in the Carabao Cup. It was actually Brentford who won 2-0. Bournemouth, who said goodbye to a wealth of players over the summer. It's going to be an interesting one. I guess we can draw further conclusions, but a long way from concrete ones after that game's played. The other game I wanted to mention here, Chelsea, who last Friday, who equally last weekend impressed, smashing out poor old West Ham on Friday 5-1, and then this week followed that up by getting Liam Delap to do live cubic roots. First of all, for anyone who didn't see this, what is a cubic square root? What is a cubic square root, Duncan?
His dad did long throws. He does long division. That's all I can boil it down to.
I mean, it's a bit beyond that, though, isn't it? They're shouting out 374,953, and he's thinking, is that the wage difference percentage between Man United and Grimsby Town? But it actually doesn't. It just comes out immediately with the cubic square root.
Multiple numbers.
They ask him how, and every time they say correct, he nods like, yeah, I know. I mean,
And at the
obviously,
end,
black and white.
At the end, he's asked, "Oh, how'd you do that? How'd you do that?" And he just goes, "I'm clever, innit?" And fair enough.
It is, but that's extreme.
Clever in that very specific way.
Is it as good as Sunderland's Luke O'Neill juggling the ball while doing a Rubik's Cube? I think that's better.
I mean, they're both impressive. I'm just fascinated by what leads a mind. How does a mind pass those numbers? Because it's obviously as clear as day. He doesn't have to do calculations. It's just you can just draw a line through that number, and that's the answer.
Guess his dad's outside endlessly practicing his long throws. You've got to fill those afternoons somehow.
He had to fold a lot of towels as a youngster, so you got to think of something.
His dad must have had an innate understanding of parabola, I would suggest. So maybe there is a.
It's in Tony Pulis' short-lived
Liam
expensive
Delap.
foreign signing phase. Parabola and Tunshai.
Right. Okay. Anyway, if you haven't seen the clip, or if you have and you just want to be impressed again, seek it out. It's on Chelsea's social media account, and it is amazing. Oh, on the subject of Chelsea against Fulham, prepare the steak and get the kindling ready because we've got a heretic writing in. C&G says, are Chelsea better without Palmer? Is C&G saying what everyone's thinking?
No.
No. We don't know if Cole Palmer's going to be fit for this one. it may not matter because they've got João Pedro, who's got 4 goals in 4 games. Liam Delap's clever, so is Marco Silva, who has gone to his bench in both of Fulham's games so far and found a goal-scoring substitute. By the way, Fulham won this fixture last season. That was their first win at Stamford Bridge in 45 years. I mean, there are many other things we could say about this game, but perhaps let's wait for it to happen and then draw conclusions. It's Thursday, listeners, we record this, and later on today they're going to do the draw for the Champions League phase with 7 new teams entering the mix, courtesy of the Champions League playoffs, which they had the second legs of Tuesday, Wednesday. In amongst the PSGs, the Man Cities, Liverpool's, Inters and Barcelonas, we're going to have the northernmost team in Champions League history, or Bodo stroke Glimt. They put out Storm Graz. And also the easternmost team in Champions League history, Kairat Almaty, who knocked out Celtic on penalties after 2 goalless draws. Listener Stephen Taylor points out that Kairat Almaty are closer to Tokyo than Newcastle, who will undoubtedly draw them. We shall see.
There is just a look on the Wikipedia page for the season's Champions League, and there is a map showing where all the teams are.
Ooh.
And Kairat is so easternmost that on the map it just says Kairat, and it's pointing off the map.
No.
And then it says in brackets, not on map. Close
Right.
brackets.
Well, they're on the map now after those
Oh, they've
goalless
put
draws.
themselves on the map.
Yeah, and Paphos FC of Cyprus, who also booked their place midweek. Not featuring in the Champions League group stage, or league phase rather, will be Jose Mourinho and his Fenerbahce side, who got beaten by his old club Benfica. And there are no Scottish teams whatsoever after Celtic's draw and exit with Kairat Almaty, and also the very next day after Rangers went to Bruges looking to turn around a 3-1 first leg defeat and didn't quite do it.
Narrow 6-0 reversal.
Right. 6-0.
Wouldn't it be fun if Rangers and Celtic played each other this weekend?
Well, Duncan, you're in luck.
What?
It is the Old Firm game this weekend. They did have a player sent off after 8 minutes, but the way that their team collapsed and eventually went out 9-1 on aggregate, which I believe is the 3rd worst aggregate defeat in Champions League history, has set the alarm bells that weren't already ringing, they're ringing now, because Russell Martin's had 10 games in charge, won only 3 of them, and, well, if it doesn't go well for him in the Old Firm game this weekend, one wonders. New owners, new manager, so you never know.
Yeah, it's obviously been a really, really difficult week for Scottish football in Europe, and I actually think you're talking about all the new teams that are in the Champions League league phase, and I think that kind of shows that there is a triumph of how UEFA have kind of not manufactured the draw, but you have in these tournaments, you have like a champions path and then a path for the rest of them. So that's why you get teams like Benfica and Fenerbahce.
So it's almost like a nations league for clubs.
And I think it gives an opportunity for nations like Kazakhstan, like Cyprus, like Norway, the opportunity to reach those stages of the competition. I mean, Kairat aren't the first Kazakhstani club. It was Astana, who's been the flagship team. They were in the group stages 10 years ago. And I think one of the things is for teams like that, when Astana were in the Champions League group phase, they didn't lose any of their 3 home matches. I mean, those are really, really difficult away matches to go to for any team.
It's really cold there as well.
Very cold, very long journey, a hostile atmosphere. And the match against Celtic actually ended at local time on Wednesday morning. So that must have an impact on you as a player after all that traveling and the sort of time zone differences and trying to acclimatize yourself, I guess, to that environment. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting format the way things have panned out this year. You're talking about obviously Bodo Glimt being the most northern club in the Champions League, Kairat being the most easterly.
It's really cold there as well.
Yes, I would imagine so. I've never been quite that far north into the Arctic Circle, but yeah, it's extraordinary. And the westernmost club in Europe, Santa Clara from the Azores Islands of Portugal, have a chance to get into the Conference League group phases. They are, I mean, we're recording this early on Thursday, they're 2-1 down to Shamrock Rovers of the League of Ireland. But again, it's geographically, it's a very pleasing draw.
Like Laurie's Anglesey to Cleethorpes journey, we're really maxing out the old latitude and longitude of football.
We're getting plenty of mileage from it. Cahir asks, are there any major coefficient repercussions for Scottish clubs in football? Ooh, is this one of those situations where, because they have a better chance of going far deep in the Europa League, that could actually work out better or not?
I think it could potentially. And I think one of the things is Celtic have been really underperforming in Europe for the best part of 2 decades. I made the point last season they haven't they haven't progressed through a knockout round past the league phase or group phase since 2004 in any European competition. So that's going into the 22nd year of that, which is remarkable when you look at Rangers, who've actually done quite well in Europe. Obviously, have reached the Europa League final. They tend to go quite deep into that competition regularly. But domestically, Rangers have obviously struggled in comparison. So I think there is an issue there. And obviously, you've got Aberdeen are still playing in Europe, Hibernian as well, going into the Conference League playoff games. But yeah, I think Scottish football in general has an issue because you look at a lot of the teams that they're going up against, especially Rangers and Celtic teams who've got comparable budgets. But, I mean, Club Brugge's budget is similar to Rangers, but they're beating them 9-1 in aggregate. And obviously there's maybe a coaching factor in there too, as Rangers fans will point out. But yeah, it's not great. And I think Scottish football tends to compare itself to England quite a lot, which is kind of unhelpful because, I mean, England's a complete one-off in terms of the income that it's got for its clubs. But I think Scottish football needs to have some sort of fundamental issues addressed.
I mean, if you look at the current UEFA coefficient rankings, which obviously are subject to change a lot as we go into the season, but Scotland have now, after this week's results, have gone below Cyprus. I mean, they should pull that back because they've still got 4 teams left in Europe, and Cyprus got 3, and yeah, as we said, one of them is in the Champions League, but they are 18th and quite a long way, to Colin's point, behind England.
Right now, though, let's get back to the Premier League and more crisis club news. West Ham, who've followed up last weekend's 5-1 defeat to Chelsea by losing 3-2 away at previously winless Wolves. They were 2-up in this game before 2 goals in 3 minutes from Jurgen Strand-Larsen. Strand-Larsen, who's very much the subject of transfer interest from Newcastle, coming off the bench and in the last 10 minutes with that brace to get Molineux rocking. Worryingly for West Ham, Victor Pereira had fielded a much changed Wolves side, but I think I'm right in saying that Graham Potter had gone with a strong hammer 11 with certainly Bowen and Paquetá right from the start.
Few changes. Yeah.
All right.
Not wholesale changes.
Jared Bowen. With Jared Bowen.
Jared Bowen, yeah. Jared Bowen.
Quite low-key beef.
Right. Describe it, Tom.
The headlines made it sound worse than actually was.
Did he offer a fan?
There's nowhere at Kansas. He did not appear to offer a fan outside for.
Did he appear to wish to climb over the advertising hoarding to confront?
Not necessarily.
No?
So basically, the West Ham fans the West Ham players traipse over to the away fans at the end of the game, and Bowen sort of is the closest to the away supporters, who thinned out quite considerably. And I think one of them is giving him a bit of stick, and Bowen kind of remonstrates and looks like he wants to get involved in a more profound conversation, and is pulled away by his teammates, and that was it. And he apologised very quickly on social media.
Everyone's hurting.
Everyone's hurting,
and you can understand why.
Are.
What are West Ham doing this weekend? They're going to Nottingham Forest. Wolves will be up against Everton, who also they're going to be facing in the third round of the Carabao Cup after knocking West Ham out this week. So, yeah, West Ham against Nottingham Forest, but it's no disgrace to lose away to another Premier League side, 3-2, but against the backdrop of Graham Potter's other results, the start of the season, and the fact that he's now been in charge for 20 Premier League matches and has won only 5 of them, is the clock a ticking there as well?
West Ham's issues definitely go much deeper than Graham Potter. But I think that was obvious when he walked through the door there last season, that you kind of think, is this going to be the right club for him? Is West Ham the right club for any manager aside from maybe David Moyes over the past sort of 5 or 10 years? Whenever Julian Lopetegui sort of sacked several months into the season, everyone's like, look how much of a disaster Lopetegui was. But you kind of look at his track record, even at Wolves, and he's actually done quite a good job there. You can see he's trying to implement a style. He's got his own ideas. You didn't see any of that at West Ham, and it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same with Graham Potter. You just don't see any style of play. And looking at West Ham's starting 11, only 2 of their outfield players are younger than 28, and it seems to be a sort of recurring theme of their recruitment, that it just seems so scattergun. It seems to be like, let's bring in Callum Wilson, who's sort of in his early 30s, has had pretty bad injury problems the past couple of years, and that's on top of Nicholas Fulkrug, who they signed last season, who's in his early 30s and has had injury problems the past season. And you sort of just think, what is it they're trying to do? What's the overall aim? And they're going into this game against Forest, who've obviously made a decent start to the season, but who've obviously got massive question marks over the future of their own manager for very different reasons.
Right, well, yeah, issues indeed. Chris Wood is not under 28, but he is still scoring lots of goals. And bad news for West Ham, they're his favourite opponent. He's got 8 goals against them so far. As you mentioned, Forest do have issues of their own. They have not lost a game. They have not dropped points against the Hammers since Nuno took charge of the club. But there was some doubt last weekend whether he would still be in charge of the club come this fixture. Has it all gone quiet on that? Has peace broken out at the City Ground?
Well, it feels like it's gone quiet and that there hasn't been any news out of the last few days as we record. But then the most explosive provider of news with regard to this saga over the last couple of weeks has been Nuno Espirito Santo himself. I think it will be his pre-match press conference that gives the clearest indication as to where things are, whether things have settled down. And even prior to the very explosive press conference that preceded the Crystal Palace game, prior to the opening game against Brentford, he gave a very downbeat, very pessimistic press conference about how unprepared the team was for the season and seemed determined to strike a pretty miserable note. And then Forest go and put 3 past Brentford and, play pretty well. Right. So, yeah, I suspect that will... I was going to say that would be the most keenly anticipated pre-match press conference. We've also got Ruben Amorim's to come. Right. And also Graham Potter's, so perhaps not.
West Ham, the visitors to Nottingham Forest. Wolves, who beat them midweek, hosting Everton. Wolves are the only team who've got no points and no goals in the Premier League this season, but they have got Jurgen Strand Larsen. Will they be keeping hold of him? We don't know. They have rejected a £55 million bid from Newcastle this week. Everton, meanwhile, have they now tied up the services of the young and exciting Tyler Dibbling?
They have. He made his debut last night as a substitute. No, he didn't.
He did.
Yeah, as a replacement for Jack Grealish in the 2-0 win over Mansfield.
What we're all hoping is it'll be Grealish on one flank and Dibbling doing the dribbling.
And Ndiaye in the middle. I mean, dribblers galore. Dribblers delight.
It should be pointed out that people sort of, think David Moyes is quite a dour manager, but he does enjoy a sort of dribbly front unit, and now he's got one.
And a cross. And a header.
Yeah.
All right. Wolves Everton, that's Saturday 3:00. Don't try and watch it unless you're outside the UK or you're at Molineux.
Yep, those are your options. So prepare yourself.
28th of August, as we record, listener. 20th of August is a bad day historically for Arsenal fans. On this day, for example, 28th of August 1994, young Robbie Fowler scored what was at that time the fastest hat-trick in Premier League history against Arsenal at Anfield. It took him 4.5 minutes. On this day in 2011, it was the Man United 8-2.
The birth of very much the birth of kind of social media football memeology, I'd say.
Right,
I'd hate to be an Arsenal fan, etc., etc. Also, made people think about Loughborough's football team more than any other day in football history because it was Arsenal's biggest defeat since they lost to Loughborough back in the day.
Arsenal were so spooked by that 8-2 defeat that they signed in a deadline day splurge Mikel Arteta, who's now their manager, and Pep Mertesacker, who's now head of their academy, an academy that's furnishing them with a phalanx of young football talent. Lovely.
Wasn't that also the window when they signed a bunch of other really random players?
Was it Ben Ayoun as well?
That one. And it was generally seen as this very unsuccessful, panicky late transfer window
the era where Arsene Wenger didn't really sign many players, so Arsenal fans
Park Chu-young from Monaco as well, I think.
They were so eager for any signings. And we must remember this was the peak of transfer deadline day when, in its pomp.
In its dildo in ear.
Yeah, fans would gather behind reporters up and down the country.
What killed that? Was it COVID?
Probably the dildo in the ear, I think.
Security measures for journalists,
right.
mainly.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Premier League weekend. Also coming up, we've got Sunderland against Brentford, Leeds hosting Newcastle, and late Sunday, Villa against Crystal Palace, which has been moved, as mentioned, because Palace have suddenly found themselves caught up in the Europa Conference League. Now, Palace in that competition are in action this Thursday night. They are 1-0 up against Fredrikstad from the first leg, but they're away in Norway. So we'll see what happens. A narrow lead, but they are on a 12-match unbeaten run in all competitions. Oliver Glasner earning plaudits for his progress so far with a probably pretty understrength Palace. What's up with the Villa, though? I know they haven't made many signings either. You've got your Evan Gesson, is it? Gesson?
Evan Gesson.
Gesson?
Yes. Oui.
Will it be a Gesson game, this? I don't know. But what is up with Villa?
Well, they haven't really signed any players.
Yeah.
They've lost a lot of the important loanees that came in the second half of last season and gave them a bit of a boost. And they've just looked really flat. I mean, that first game against Newcastle at Villa Park, that was the game in which I think in April, Villa just completely took Newcastle to the cleaners, beat them 4-1, I think. And Newcastle just got into them and they never got going. And then similarly toothless in the defeat at Brentford last weekend. And the only players they've signed are Evan Gesson, who hasn't started a game yet in the league, and Marco Bizot, the backup goalkeeper. I mean, you can't put it all down to, transfers, but I think, it doesn't help with the mood, but I think the fact that, you had this new dynamic in the second half of last season that with, Marco Asensio and Rashford notably leaving has now disappeared, and they've not managed to find a new dynamic. And Ollie Watkins has looked a little bit off it. Morgan Rogers ditto. Boubacar Kamara's now injured. So yeah, I think a combination of factors, as is so often the case.
One of the issues with Villa is that on the opening day of the season and for the second game too, 7 of the 10 outfield players that they had were there when Steven Gerrard was manager at the club. Now that's obviously going back quite a while, and I think that goes to show quite a few things. But I think there's a general, I don't know if it's a consensus amongst football fans. People see Villa and say, oh, that's like a really well-run club who make really savvy signings. But when you look back over the last several windows under Monchi, the sporting director, a lot of the signings just haven't worked out at all. A lot of the signings haven't come anywhere near to being in the first team. You kind of think, are those players that Emery wanted? Are those players that the club wanted? Obviously, Villa have had all these sort of PSR issues in the past couple of years, and it's like they're trying to make all these trade-offs to tick sort of financial boxes. They obviously sold Jacob Ramsey last week to Newcastle, and that's another player you think, oh, he's sort of fits into their model very well, but all of a sudden he's gone. Is he going to be replaced? Evan Gesson. Yeah, and Evan Gesson has come in, but he was sort of a target for Crystal Palace this summer, and they had sort of evaluated the possibility of signing him, and then they kind of thought better of it because of the sort of financial package, and they kind of thought this relatively small sample size from his time at Nice last season.
I think you were excited about him, no?
I really like him. He's quite a curious player in that he started off last season at Nice playing through the middle and then ended up playing more off the right. But he's a right-footed player who plays on the right, which makes him quite unusual. But a very inventive player. And I think when he came on at Brentford, he made a real difference.
Guessing.
What?
He keeps them guessing.
He keeps them guessing. Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He does. He does.
I'm just saying. His name
just firing him out here. Yeah. Just firing him out. But yeah, he's very much the kind of player who will keep his opponents. Yeah, you can't pronounce it. Yeah, that pun doesn't work in the French accent. So
I'll
abandon that sentence.
Villa Palace, the Harry and Meghan Classico. Sunderland Brentford, Black Cats v Bees. First top flight meeting between these clubs since May 1947. Woof. A shout out.
Vibes this week with Man United and Grimsby's reunion and now this one.
Shout out to Sunderland's Elisir Mayenda, who's played so far 139 minutes in the Premier League out of a potential 180. He's made only 3 passes, completing 2 of them. This is both the fewest passes and fewest successful passes in a player's first 2 Premier League starts since Opta started recording these things in 2003. What position does he play?
Centre forward.
So he just never gets the ball, essentially.
Yeah. Your move, Erling Haaland.
Wow. It's almost 140 minutes and he's made 3 passes.
Don't need to pass the ball if you're busy sticking it in the net. That's probably what he thinks.
Just, cause a few problems for the defenders.
Sunderland were knocked out of the Carabao Cup by League One Huddersfield on penalties.
Hell of a goal by Leo Castledine.
Was it?
Both scorers in this game were Chelsea loanees in just like the latest indication of Chelsea's tentacular spread over the whole of football.
Right.
But Leo Castledine, who scored the Huddersfield goal,
Son of
absolute beauty.
90s Premier League icon, Stuart Castledine.
Is he really?
Mm-hmm.
There you go. So between them, the Castledine family and Chelsea Football Club have basically got control of English football.
Wow. It's in safe hands. What was the goal? What was so special about the goal, Tom?
I think it was a cross came in from the right, cleared to the edge of the area, and Castledine kind of runs onto it. He's kind of in the sort of inside right, like half space. He just hits it, laces on the volley, top right corner, billowing net.
Love that.
Home fans silenced.
Seeing pictures, ain't you?
Magnificent.
Sunderland Brentford could be a very set-piecey match, couldn't it? Obviously, Keith Andrews, the former set-piece coach in Sunderland, who put such an emphasis on scoring from set pieces too. And I think this round of fixtures is actually, I think it's a really good round of fixtures in the sense of really good matchups, like really interesting storylines. And Sunderland and Brentford, probably two really strong examples of how the kind of narratives flip so quickly in the early weeks of the season. After the first match day, and Sunderland got that massive win over West Ham and all this positivity, and then they go and slump
One
at
game
Burnley.
sample size versus 2 game sample size.
Whereas Brentford and all the sort of doubts over, is Keith Andrews actually a manager to begin with, and then that really poor Forest performance, and then they go and beat Aston Villa 1-0, and then the League Cup win, and you sort of think all of a sudden it's completely changed, and you're still in August. So yeah, this game will be really interesting, and I do think that stylistically it might not be one for the purists, but it
might be one for the purists. Or it might not be.
I think whoever wins this game stays up.
It's a big shout from Duncan. Not the first one he's made, nor I suspect the last. The other game taking place this weekend is Leeds-Newcastle. Leeds against a depleted Newcastle, because Tonali, Joelinton and Shah are all out injured, and Anthony Gordon is now suspended post Monday night's defeat to Liverpool.
Yeah, calf
raking. Red card,
If we're talking about depleted teams,
Oh, yeah.
they don't come much more depleted than Sheffield Wednesday
at
the moment, who essentially played what was a sort of youth team almost against Leeds midweek. And Leeds were relatively strong and brought on a lot of their big guns in the second half, couldn't get it done and lost on penalties. And I actually saw the sort of closing stages of this game, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin had a series of really point blank misses, and then he skied his penalty in the shootout. And again, it goes to sort of show that, Leeds' early kind of positivity around that Everton game, and then you go and lose 5-0 at Arsenal. Okay, it's away at Arsenal, and then that match midweek. So again, this feels almost like a big match for them, that if this doesn't go well, then you sort of think all of a sudden there might be question marks over, is Daniel Farke the guy that's going to they can keep them up, and have they had a good window or not? So yeah, it's all early conclusions, isn't it? But these games are all really good markers for it.
I mean, Calvert-Lewin had an XG of 1.4 in that game, and Sheffield Wednesday had an XG of 0.15. So, and he
plus the squandered shootout penalty.
Yeah, and he had to come out. If early into your career you have to come out on social media and almost apologise for performance, it's
not great. Mark Carey was suggesting on Sunday that XG is a misleading statistic when applied to a single game, but only really comes into its own when applied over a bigger sample size.
That is true.
Okay,
but
Duncan's drunk on the power of it.
Yeah.
That's why. He knows he shouldn't, but
it's like when they built the Death Star. You shouldn't use it for certain things, but if you got that just there,
it's hard not to, isn't it?
Alderaan.
Whoops. I would say that's it for today's show, our preview of the Premier League weekend and much more. But there's still one matter still outstanding. Tom Williams, just remind us, first of all, what the question was.
So in Liverpool's 3-2 win at Newcastle on Monday, a new record was set for the largest gap in age between an assist provider and goal scorer. When 33-year-old Mo Salah set up 16-year-old Rio and Gamoha for the winner. And my question was, whose record did they beat? And it was set by two former Liverpool players.
Right.
And the answer is...
Oh, does anybody know, Colin? Duncan? Producer Charlie?
No, Charlie's not allowed.
No, Charlie is allowed. Come on, here comes Producer Charlie.
Good guess. John Barnes and Michael Owen.
Is incorrect.
Ooh.
I mean, I know the answer
So that's why you're not allowed to answer.
Why do you know the answer?
Because
because of someone I know who came up with the very good statistic that Tom Williams has stolen for his own.
All right.
affairs.
Should we credit the person who came
Yeah,
up
this
with it?
is Michael Reed, who is at Opta and a Liverpool specialist. So
Right.
If you
Very
want,
much his
Liverpool,
ballpark.
if you like Liverpool data and stats, then you should follow him on social media.
All right, and his shiny laptop.
the correct answer is, of course, Gary McAllister and a young Steven Gerrard in the early noughties at some point.
Thank you for that, Tom, and so much more. And thank you as well to Colin Millar and Duncan Alexander, to Lloyd Griffith and Laurie Whitwell too. Also to Jay and producer Charlie in the booth, and you listener. We will have a totally extra for you on Saturday. Again, this is our kind of weekend special show where we just chat about some stuff. Duncan, we recorded this earlier in the week. Yourself, myself, Julian Laron, and Michael Cox, who in between getting a dining table delivered, helped us with a bit of a deep dive into the enigmatic career of Nikola Anelka. Was he Lusug, as so many posited? Is he simply misunderstood, as his own Netflix special suggests?
Suggests very strongly, in fact.
Why not join us to see our conclusions and some dining room table delivery banter? That's in Totally Extra. And then, of course, on Sunday night, late Sunday night, thanks, Premier League fixtures, we'll be back with our Sunday night live stream on our YouTube channel, or you can just wait till a sensible time on Monday morning and hear what we make of Matchday 3. Excellent. That's it for today. From all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.